So a lot of you have requested this one, a deep dive into the Oslo florist killer case. It's a pretty chilling, unsolved mystery from Norway's capital back in the mid-1970s. And, I have to admit, even just reading the basics gave me chills. 3 women, all murdered. And the only clue connecting them, a single fresh flower left at each scene. Wild, right?
Oh.
So let's unpack this.
It's funny. The thing that gets me right away is how much this case plays on some pretty basic fears. The idea of a killer just, out there operating randomly, targeting these everyday women and then leaving behind these macabre calling cards. It's really the stuff of nightmares.
Yeah, for sure. And think about what it must have been like in Oslo back then. I mean, just going about your day knowing that a killer might be out there.
Yeah.
And every flower you see could be like this symbol of dread.
Exactly, exactly. It makes you think about how vulnerable we all are. But let's start with the facts, as chilling as they are. So our first victim, Ingrid Halvorsen, she was a young university student, found strangled in a dark alley, a single red flower right there beside her body.
Man, it's a detail that's it's baffling and just heartbreaking at the same time. Was it like some twisted romantic idea? Or is he just trying to like taunt the investigators? What kind of person does something like that?
I think it suggests a need for control, this need to stage the scene, leave a mark. It's not just a random act. There was a plan, a chilling level of, calculation going on.
Yeah, and he didn't stop there. The second victim, Kristen Berg, she worked at a shop, disappeared after work one day. And later they found her body in a park near, would you believe it, another florist shop.
Oh, wow.
And again, there was a flower. And she was strangled too.
The similarities, I mean, they're just too obvious, right? This wasn't a coincidence. This was a serial killer, and now the whole city's on edge.
Oh, I bet. And then there's Annette Lund, a nurse. And this time there's a potential eyewitness. Someone saw her talking to a man before she disappeared. They said he was wearing like a long coat and a hat. Did they ever catch him?
Sadly, no, the description was way too vague. I mean, they really tried, but they couldn't ID the guy. He's just this shadowy figure, another piece of this messed up puzzle.
And tragically, just like the others, they found her strangled too. A single white flower at the scene. 3 women, all murdered in such similar ways, all near florists. All with these flower signatures. It seems like the killer was trying to say something, but what?
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? I mean, was he sending a message to the cops, like a way of taking credit, or was it something, I don't know, more personal, maybe something to do with the victims themselves?
And the flower thing is so weird, like 2 red flowers and then a white one for Annette. Was that like random, or was there a meaning behind each flower for the killer?
Right. And we can't forget about the investigation itself, right? I mean, DNA analysis was barely a thing back then. So the cops were stuck with, the old school methods, fingerprints, witness statements, trying to connect the victims to suspects. What we're left with is this case that's totally shrouded in mystery. And even the tiniest details feel huge.
Yeah, it's like you're trying to crack a code or something, looking for these hidden messages in every move the killer made.
Yeah.
But before we go down the rabbit hole of all the different theories, let's focus on the investigation itself. Like, do they have any solid leads? Well, I mean, it sounds like the cops really zeroed in on anyone who, like, worked at or even just went to florist shops. Right? It makes sense, I guess, with that whole flower theme going on.
Yeah, definitely. They were basically looking for anyone who could have gotten their hands on the types of flowers that were left at the scenes. Anyone who had a history of violence against women. Anyone who stood out.
And did they find anyone?
Well, there was this one guy, Lars Eriksson. He worked pretty close to one of the florists, and he had a history of harassing women.
Sounds like our guy.
Yeah, he definitely fit the profile, but the investigation it kind of went nowhere. There was nothing solid linking him to the actual murders. No witnesses, no physical evidence. I mean, he was definitely a person of interest, but in the end, they couldn't actually pin anything on him.
So it's like the killer just disappeared.
Yeah.
Poof, gone.
Yeah.
After Annette's murder, nothing. No more victims, no more flowers, no more terror. What do you make of that?
It really is one of the weirdest things about this whole case, this sudden silence. It's like he was in total control, which is I don't know, it's both fascinating and totally creepy at the same time. Did he move away? Did he get caught for something else? Did he just decide to stop? I mean, these are the questions that have been driving investigators crazy for I don't know, decades at this point.
Yeah, and it's so easy to get lost in the theories and everything. But what about Oslo? I mean, the city itself. Like Oslo is supposed to be this really peaceful place, so this must have been a huge shock.
Oh, yeah, for sure. It totally shattered the city's sense of safety. I mean, can you imagine the fear? Every flower shop, every bouquet, it's like suddenly a potential like threat. People were constantly looking over their shoulder,
Yeah.
wondering if they were being watched.
Okay, so we've got these horrifying murders, a city that's like totally freaked out, a couple of leads that fizzle out, and then nothing. Silence. Where do we even go from here? How do we even begin to make sense of the Oslo florist killer?
I think we have to, dive into the theories, the speculation. We got to try to make sense of the senseless. And that's where those flowers, those creepy calling cards, those become like really interesting. Were they, just a way for him to like take credit, or did they have a deeper meaning? Maybe something connected to the victims.
Yeah, and those two red flowers, and then
Right.
that white one for Annette. It's hard not to see a pattern there. Was each flower chosen for a reason, or was it just like random? And why stop at three? So many
I
questions.
know it's part of what makes this case so compelling, but also so frustrating. We're trying to figure out the killer's language, their motives, their psychology. Was this, I don't know, some guy who thought he was like a romantic leaving flowers as a tribute, or was it darker than that, a way of taunting the police? Like some kind of, I don't know, twisted art project or something.
And then there's that question that hangs over all these, unsolved cases. Like, what if he's still out there?
Ugh, that's a thought, right? And it's definitely possible. I mean, the fact that the murder stopped so abruptly, it does make you think that maybe he's still alive, just, living a normal life somewhere. Maybe he's moved on, got a
Yeah.
family, buried his past. Or maybe he's still watching, waiting for the right moment to do it again.
Oh, wow. Chills, man. Just thinking about that. It's I don't know, to have a case go cold like that with so many unanswered questions.
Y-
It's like a wound that never heals. It really makes you think, huh, like what would it have been like, living in Oslo back then,
Yeah.
knowing there was a killer out there, just waiting.
Yeah, I mean, I can only imagine the impact, the fear. I mean, it would just be constant, like always looking over your shoulder, not knowing who to trust. Even like the simplest things would feel dangerous, walking home alone at night,
Yeah.
or even, buying flowers.
It just shows you that even in places that seem totally safe, totally normal, there can be this darkness hiding underneath. And what about the families of the victims, Ingrid, Kristen, Annette? Their lives were cut short, their stories unfinished, and the fact that their killer was never caught. It's got to be even harder to deal with.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, their cases are still open, which shows you that, the investigators haven't given up. Maybe someday there'll be some new evidence, or a witness will come forward, or, maybe technology will catch up and they'll finally, figure out who it was. But for now, the Oslo florist killer case it's a reminder that some mysteries just they might never be solved, and that's a tough pill to swallow.
It is, yeah. It really makes you think, but it also makes you realize that we got to be more careful, more aware of our surroundings, look out for each other. Because even though this was a long time ago, the fear, the questions it raised, they're still relevant today.
And at the core of it all is that question of why. Why did he do it? Were those flowers like some twisted love letter,
Yeah.
or a sign of regret, or was it something much darker? Was he just trying to get attention, or was there some deeper, more sinister thing driving him? These are questions that might never have answers, but they're the kind of questions that keep us up at night, you know?
Yeah. This deep dive has been it's been pretty intense. What about you? What really stuck with you about this case? What are your theories? Maybe we missed something. If you've got any thoughts, we'd love to hear them. Share your ideas. And maybe, just maybe, together we can shed some light on this whole thing. Until then, stay curious, stay safe, and remember sometimes the most beautiful things can hide the darkest secrets.